Good morning. This is my sister and brother-in-law's 2005 GMC Envoy XL Denali. It does have the 5.3 V8, and what we want to do is change the transmission fluid, but not only change it, but also do a flush without using a machine. So here's what we have for it. We won't use all of this, but I wanted to have plenty on hand. This is the filter for the deep pan, and so we'll go ahead and do that. I just wanted to start by showing the color of the fluid that's in the transmission. This dipstick was just pulled, and as you can see, it is a shade of brown. It doesn't smell as bad as I thought, so it doesn't technically smell burnt, but it is definitely needs to be changed. Not sure if it's original factory fluid. This vehicle has somewhere around 150,000 miles. I forget exactly, but so that's what we're starting with. And by the time we're finished, Lord willing, it will be bright red. And so basically what I'm going to do is do a normal pan drop, where we drop the pan, change the filter, and most people would stop there. They would add the 5 quarts and call it a day. But from there, we're going to take loose the transmission cooler line underneath and start the engine and add fluid into the dipstick. And that will effectively pump out the old fluid, and you'll be able to visibly see the color of what's being pumped out turn bright red. And that clears the torque converter and everything of the old fluid, replacing it with new. So we'll go ahead and get started. So under the car, this is the transmission pan, and we have something like 16 bolts to take out. And we'll drop the pan. This is a normal part of a transmission service, and then the filter will go inside there along with the 5 or so quarts, and then we'll start the flush. Now these are the transmission cooler lines going into the radiator, so I have to figure out which one is which one I want to take out regarding the direction of flow to connect my hose to. And so we'll go from there. Okay, so here we have the transmission pan that I just dropped, and yeah, that fluid is pretty dark, and so let's dump this and take a look at how much debris so this is nothing out of the ordinary. There's the magnet. That doesn't look like a factory magnet. It's normally square. It looks like somebody has thrown that in as a bigger, more powerful magnet. Wow, I can't even get that up yet, but you can see it is covered in a good amount of, that's all iron. What that is iron particles that collect on the magnet and form this oily paste of iron. And yeah, those are destructive particles, but they are kept at bay by the magnet. Sorry, my screen just turned. Anyway, and then the rest of the stuff in the pan, this black stuff is like the clutch dust and the various wear material from the transmission that is not ferrous, not iron, but all the iron, all the ferrous particles are stuck onto this magnet, and there's a very good amount. So perhaps this is the factory magnet. But anyway, so I'm going to clean this up with rags and brake cleaner, you know, put a new gasket on and reinstall it. Alright, so here we are under the car. This is after dropping the pan and changing the filter. That's the new filter right there. So I have to reinstall the transmission pan and refill with fluid. Let's look at the pan. Here is the pan, which you saw before was extremely dirty, and the magnet that was coated in iron particles is now clean. The new gasket, so now comes the fun of getting that back in place, bolting it in and refilling. And at that point most people stop and call it job done, and that's where we begin from there with the flush procedure. Welcome back. So the transmission pan is back on, new filter. We have gone ahead and filled the transmission with the Amsoil synthetic ATF. Now this is the point where most people would stop. They'd be done, they'd call it a day, they'd check their fluid levels and be done. But your torque converter and the rest of the transmission is still full of old dirty fluid. So at this point, the procedure that I wanted to show you begins, and this is where you connect a clear hose to your transmission cooler line that goes into the radiator. And so when you start the engine, you have a helper start the engine, it's going to pump the old fluid out, and you try to mimic that same rate of adding it to the funnel, to the transmission, and you will visibly be able to see the color of this fluid change to bright red, which tells you that you have changed everything at that point. So that is what we're going to do next, Lord willing. So here we are ready to add the fluid while Gabe starts the engine and pumps it out, and we're going to be looking, especially near the end, to see the color of this fluid change in the hose. So here we go. Alright Gabe, you can start it. Good job. That fluid is still pretty dark. Probably going to take a while. Oh yeah, we're just starting to... Yeah, it's starting to come up now. But the color change might still be a few minutes. So that's total of 12 so far, and I need more. get that color started. Can you tell any difference?
No.
Might be hard to see on camera, but it is starting to turn a brighter, little bit brighter red. Yeah, there we go. Alright, Dave, you can stop it, buddy. Thank you. Perfect. Alright, so we'll be back in a second to look at everything. Thank you.
It makes everything yellow.
So, let's see what this looks like. The color change was harder to tell, but you can tell that's red. So I think we're in good shape. And we'll button everything back up and then check the fluid on the dipstick. We might have to add or whatever, but I would say that's a lot more red than what we started with. So, thanks for... So we have the flush procedure done. I've had to add several quarts. I think I actually pumped through a few too many, but that way you ensure you get a good flush. So let's take a look at the color of this fluid compared to what it was when we started. Now, that might still be a little low, but I'm going to warm it up and make sure before I add any more. But look at the color, the red color versus the brown color that we started with. So I would say that's a success. Thank you, Brittany.